doing things like I bought billionaires.com and we're interviewing 100 billionaires publicly. So like learning from that, sharing it with the community, and then building AI tools where if you don't want to get answers from the general public and you want answers from billionaires, then we've got 1,000 billionaire talks transcribed and you can do that. Some of the best advice is so fundamental, but almost nobody follows it. A lot of the billionaires I talk to, it's exciting, it's fun, it's a competitive game, and they're focusing on what they're really good at and they get great feedback from it. So they're hungry to grow it more. Only do exciting things, only do things for exponential. Don't go to any meetings you don't want to go to. What you do matters more than how hard you work, but outwork and outlearn and have more fun than anyone else who runs an investor club globally. And extreme focus is a superpower.
Richard C. Wilson joins me here today. Learn what his team is up to. Head over to familyoffices.com for a lot more information, including upcoming events and everything. You got a ton of stuff going on, Richard.
Yeah, we try to keep busy like you, right? I think we all have to become new versions of ourselves now with AI here. I know that you help other people do that because you've already done it yourself and we're of the exact same mindset. So great to be here.
So, can you share your journey regarding this and what led your focus on family offices and ultra wealthy investors?
Sure. So it really started out with me representing a separate managed account product that also had a hedge fund product. I was reaching out to all types of investors, institutional wealth advisors. And then I called one individual, his name was Gary, and he said, well, I run a family office, so I only work with the ultra wealthy. And I thought to myself, well, I should only call on family offices. And that sounded like a logical thing to do back in 2006. But the only people across all of the internet talking about it was a Financial Times journalist, a Bloomberg journalist who had never worked a day in their life in the industry. And I was like, how backwards is this? I mean, I guess I'll just talk to a lot of them and write what I learned in my little blog that was free to start on blogger.com. And I did that. And pretty soon it took off. You got 1,000, 3,000, 5,000 hits a day, got the front page of the Boston Globe, spoke a couple hundred times in 20 countries, and then started hosting our own events. So 2 decades later, here I am, and we've hosted 300 of our own events now. And we've got about a 20-person team inside the Family Office Club.
Yeah, that's like it scales relatively quickly, especially with some of these events that you were talking about. You have hundreds of people coming to these in live. Did you see a disruption during the whole COVID thing?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, like last week, we had 400 people at our events. At our annual event, we'll have 1,000 people, and we do about 20 events a year. But when COVID hit, we had 32 events planned that year. And for about 10 days, I was like, well, we're pretty much dead. What are we going to do? And then I realized that everybody needs to adjust to doing virtual events. So it's just how fast can you pivot? How effectively can you pivot? And I see parallels with that with AI, except for it's not going away. There's no time lapse or vaccine that's going to make AI not have to make us pivot. And so it's something we all need to pivot right into strongly and not sit back and just complain about only the negative parts of it.
So, what does your role as CEO of Family Offices Club, what does that entail?
So essentially, I make sure that we have excellent team members so that we get great speakers at our events, like usually 75 to 100 plus speakers at our big summits. And so making sure we have the right team is what every CEO basically is doing at the core. But beyond that, I develop all of our own in-house artificial intelligence tools. So we have 37 different AI tools that we've built out for our club members. They're just free for our club members. So there's not like a whole separate business we're trying to spin off or anything. So that takes up a lot of my time. And then I do the thought leadership. I've written 13 books and done 1,000 podcast episodes like you. And always learning through connecting and trying to share everything I've learned through all the other interviews, doing things like I bought billionaires.com and we're interviewing 100 billionaires publicly. So like learning from that, sharing it with the community, and then building AI tools where if you don't want to get answers from the general public and you want answers from billionaires, then we've got 1,000 billionaire talks transcribed and you can do that.
Yeah, wow. Wait, I would be curious, like when you're setting up these speakers and these type of events, and you're talking about the ultra wealthy and talking to billionaires, how much of this content is more mindset driven versus actual scalable actions? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. So people's minds go to, you can see this on social media sometimes. They go up to somebody in a Lamborghini and say, "How'd you make your money? How'd you make your money?" It's almost
Um,
like you're saying, "What did you do? What did you do?" What's far more valuable is how did you think? What mental models do you operate on? How did you manage peak mindset? How did you stay positive? How did you have the grit, the tenacity, the discipline, the extreme focus to pull that off? And the billionaires go towards this. Pro athletes go towards this. So I've interviewed about 70 pro athletes so far, including Mike Tyson. And the billionaires and the pro athletes know it's all about the mindset. And you can take that mindset and apply it in all different markets and industries potentially. But knowing what somebody did is only worth so much because now that point in time has changed. And if you do that now, it might not work as well. So in my mind, it's all about managing, curating the right mindset, mental models, and focus.
sure. But you've mentioned being on the tip of the spear with AI. Like, is it probably a full-time job just staying up on the latest trends and the next speakers and the topics that are of interest at that in that moment?
Yeah, for sure. I try to segment my time so I can go into like deep flow, like 2.5 hour and 5 hour segments of working just on the AI tools because they're so high leverage. My team is really managing most of the speakers, but I decide what we're going to talk about. I script all the discussion panel questions, make sure that we're staying on top of new trends. And I go to every event we host and we don't invite that speaker back. And I know I chose the wrong topics. And when I'm interviewing, like last week, we had 4 Centimillionaires on stage. I just selfishly ask them what I'm curious about still after doing 300 events. And then I know if somebody's been to 100 of my events, it's still going to be fresh for them because I want it to be fresh for me selfishly. Because at this point, just like you doing this podcast for a long time, it's like you can hire someone else to do it if you didn't care. If you weren't still learning, if it wasn't good for your brain to be here, like, it would be hard to find someone to run the event without me there or this podcast without you there. It wouldn't have your personality, your spin, and you wouldn't learn from it anymore.
So, has there been any big surprises that you're talking to all of these very successful individuals? Have you gotten any advice that just kind of caught you off guard?
Yeah. Some of it is just how often the same advice comes up. And some of the best advice is so fundamental, but almost nobody follows it. So reading everything in your niche and having knowledge advantage, doing the opposite of everyone else, at least in one area that's critical in your business, and having the courage to be very different than other people. But if you could pull it off, it'd be like Elon catching a rocket and you'd surge forward maybe. The other thing is that the work ethic, some people think it's a workaholic thing, but a lot of the billionaires I talk to, it's exciting, it's fun, it's a competitive game, and they're focusing on what they're really good at and they get great feedback from it. So they're hungry to grow it more. And it's not just about the wealth. They have enough money to do already whatever they want? And so I think having all those things combined and making sure that daily you're operating within the rules of what all these people have been saying is the most valuable thing perhaps I could share with people listening. And I created a one-page cheat sheet that I laminate. And every morning when I shave, I look at my family values, monthly, quarterly, annual goals, and then about 50 little one-liner statements. Like if you were to program an AI tool and say, these are all the parameters and these are all the rules, this is how you should act as an AI tool. It's almost like you're doing that for your brain and saying, only do exciting things. Only do things that are exponential. Don't go to any meetings you don't want to go to. What you do matters more than how hard you work, but outwork and outlearn and have more fun than anyone else who runs an investor club globally. And extreme focus is a superpower. Like I read those things every single morning and it's free for people to create that. I have a Word document template if you want to start with some of my one-liners, but like it's particular to who you are in the world and that should be dialed in who you are.
Yeah, it's really kind of interesting how you kind of have to sell yourself on these type of concepts at a certain point. If you would have asked me about that just even 10 years ago, I would have said it was a bunch of hooey, but the more I incorporate that type of stuff in my daily practices, it actually does
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
direct
I
impact
couldn't agree
on
more.
yeah. So with all of these trends
Yeah,
that you're
I definitely think it does. Sarah Blakely says that managing your mindset every day is like a daily workout routine, like building muscle, and it's critical to doing well in the world. She also has a quote where she says, "You don't have to be serious all the time to be taken seriously. You can still have fun and enjoy running your business. The last thing I'd want to mention is that I have a quote from Michael Jordan on my one pager right now that I added for the month of June. And it says, "You must expect great things of yourself before you can do it."
Hmm. Yeah, I saw something from Dan Martell recently. It kind of ties to that, where he said, "You only get paid what you believe you're worth."
It's directly related to you'll never be taken more seriously than you take yourself. You know, if you're emailing an investor from a Gmail address and you don't have a $3 domain name and you don't have a 3-page website and you didn't care to put a logo together because you don't care about your venture, why should anyone care about your venture if you don't care about it? You can tell when things are sloppy, not concise, not dialed in, not carefully planned, not focused, all over the place. And people just move on instantly if they value their time highly.
Sure. Well, with everything that you're seeing, what about the real estate investing world? What have you seen in these ultra wealthy individuals regarding trends or insights in real estate investing?
Sure. Well, the real estate space has had many investors experiencing less distributions, cut off distributions, losing money in deals that were undercapitalized and had floating rate debt, deals that were making money, now losing money because of those things. And so, because of all of that, there's a further interest in debt and credit investments. There is a greater need and a flight to quality to make sure that you meet in person, see the properties in person, vet the people a little bit more, or work with more multi-$100 million, billion-dollar plus groups. And because of AI, you can fake anything. Like, I could be an AI avatar right now answering your questions, and I could fake in a data room. I could fake due diligence materials, all with AI. And because of that, it's even more important to meet in person than it was before. And so I think investors are being more careful, flight to quality. And, when you explain what you do in a single family space, it's refreshingly unique compared to a lot of what I see. And investors want to know very clearly how you add value, how the model works, how you force appreciation. And if it doesn't look night and day different than everything else in their inbox, like, you lost them. Like, if you can't say in one sentence why you're night and day different, it's game over. They don't want to open the email. They don't want a phone call. They don't want to look at your pitch deck. And you should know how you're unique. Otherwise, you really haven't done your homework on the space.
Hmm. So, can you explain the concept of the centimillionaire scaling strategies and how that could relate to real estate investing?
Sure. Well, one thing that's true is that no matter where somebody creates their wealth, it could be manufacturing or auto dealerships, et cetera, dental practice. Almost everybody wants to have real estate in their portfolio. That's the good news if you're in real estate, right? Real estate is also a hard asset. It makes it easier to get investors comfortable with than something that is like not tangible. So real estate comes up at every single event we host, but most people can't even name more than 200 billionaires, honestly, and there's 3,000 plus of them. With centimillionaires, there's over 70,000 centimillionaires. If you work with 10, it could change your life. If you work with one of them, it could change your business or life. And so realizing that centimillionaires have less gatekeepers, can still write multi 7-figure checks, super powerful, usually titans within their region, if not nationally. It's a really powerful area for people to talk about. And something like 37,000 people look up billionaire things per day, and something like 2,000 searches a day related to centimillionaires. No one seems to care about them, but they're easier to do business with, honestly, than a famous billionaire, for example. So super relevant. Happy to dive into some niche aspect of that more. I just don't want to give too long of an answer.
Yeah, no, that I really appreciate that. But before we do, I just want to remind everybody we're talking to Richard C. Wilson. You can learn a lot more at familyoffices.com. That's familyoffices.com. If you found some value in what we're talking about so far, this show only grows if you share this with another investor friend. So please consider doing that. If you're watching us on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe. So, yeah, could we dive into that a little bit, especially the niches? And of course, we're going to be interested in the real estate investing aspects of this, but why don't you just take the floor and dive a little bit further?
Yeah, sure. So more valuable the investor, the more concise and unique you need to be. That often means that you'll bring in smaller investors that much faster and you'll be dialed in for family offices. So I think that's important to know. So having a 1 minute video from the founder saying what you do, that's very unique, super important. Having a one pager, not just a big pitch deck, super important. Having one sentence that says in a powerful way what your whole pitch deck says to make them lean forward is critical. We built a tool called a one line pitch upgrader. And basically, it takes your 40-page pitch deck and it pumps out 7 one-liners based on transcriptions of 1,000 investors who spoke on stage at our events in about 25 criteria that makes up a good one-liner, like mentioning 3 credible data points, et cetera, and a certain word length. And you can put that in there and it'll pump out 7 options. You can say, I like number 2 and 6. It'll do 7 more, 7 more, 7 more. Till you have a one-liner created in just 2 or 3 minutes. We'll get people to call you back or email you back. Doing things differently is also super important. I get 1,050 emails a day on average, but I only get 5 to 7 voicemails a day on average. So in other words, it's 120 times more competitive if you only email someone. So you'd think if you email someone, you should at least leave them a voicemail as well, but there's 120 times more competition here. So if you're not sure what to do, only call them. We call, leave a voicemail, and reference our email address. So if they're an email person like me, that they'd rather reply to a quick text or an email than jump on a call to get things started with something. But all those things are super critical to communicating with any investor, but especially a high value investor. The last thing I'd mention is that most deals close because people are really high up on one or all 3 of these trust curves. And that is the trust curve of trusting you and your team, trusting the industry or understanding it, and being local to the deal. So if you only raise capital from people that already know you, already trust you, they're local to the deal, and they know the industry well, you're going to raise a lot of capital. But you run out of people that are all 3 across. You usually need to start with people that know you really well. And then you go to people that are either local to the deal or know the industry. But to make this clear, you could invest with someone who's known you for 20 years and they invest in self-storage all the time, but your self-storage deal is in New Zealand. They may not invest because they don't know New Zealand. They don't know the laws. They don't know that location. But those are some like quick tidbits that might be helpful to those who are raising capital or those looking to partner with other family offices. And, if you're an investor listening and you're trying to buy companies and buy assets, doing everything I said to make it very clear how you add strategic value and you are the person somebody should sell their asset to or partner with. But those can also be used just to communicate more effectively.
You're kind of reinforcing some things that I've been thinking about a lot lately is with AI and everybody faking it, using different tools. It seems like you're saying that the more personal touch and just making sure they realize it's a human behind it, that's actually the way to stand out right now.
For sure. I mean, even when you use a technology tool like the homepage of familyoffices.com, it says, hey, this is Daphne, not a AI bot. Like I'm a real human right here. It just becomes more and more important. And people want to meet in person and just see, like, do I like this person? Am I comfortable with them? The Centimillionaire last year has had $200 million plus exits. He said he's really just investing in people's character. Really comes down to like, I'm invested in your character and values. It looks like you're adding value to the world in a unique way. And it's really as simple as that. And everyone new to raising capital, I find, thinks it's the opposite. And they're like, are you an investor? Are you an investor? I've got the best deal in the world. Look at this 20% IRR. Look at this. I'm like 7x your money. It's actually a huge warning sign when people focus on that. If someone says you get a 10,000% return if you invest with us, look how amazing this is. And you're like, like Mike Tyson says, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. And when people overpromise the moon, it's like they've never been punched in the face before, right? And that scares investors.
Well, you were talking a little bit about some of these strategies before, but at this high performance, are there any particular habits or strategies that you've noticed that are kind of common amongst them all, other than being a workaholic?
So concise communicators, quick to move on what's most important to them so they can move rapidly and don't delay when they see big value and then they can intensely engage. I think also, one thing is really the ability to synthesize a lot of information and cut through what's real or not. Like none of these people became wealthy by paying 5 times more than they should have for a basic service. And so their ability to read people and read their body language and their facial expressions and call people's bluff, I think is really dialed in because they've had to deal with a lot of people selling them something that was not real and got burned enough times. If it looked average, they just kind of go dark or don't even reply. And that's the most challenging part of learning in this space, right? It's like if you don't hear back, you don't know why they didn't hear back, right? And that makes it potentially hopeless while getting started if you're not learning through some other channel.
You mentioned quite often this super founder mindset. Is there
Right.
anything extraordinary there that should be called out?
Yeah, I think sometimes people think of family offices as people who just have a ton of capital and they almost forget the source of that. Almost all of the family offices in our network are really just super founders, super entrepreneurs that have learned how to have a cash flow of 7, 8, 9 figures, sometimes per month, or have an exit of 7, 8, or 9 figures. And so when you go to meetings with them, you need to be somewhat open-minded that they might have their own opinion on a deal structure. If you go to them robotically of like, here's my fund. Do you want to be an LP? Minimum is 5 million. Like they maybe could have provided all the capital you needed, but you came at them like a robot saying, here's the only option to work with me on planet Earth, when maybe they like direct deals, or maybe they like pref equity. Maybe they like gross revenue royalties. Maybe they like hard money lending with an equity kicker. Who knows, right? Maybe they own a bank and they can provide it all the debt at great terms if you let them get a sweetheart deal on the equity. So you need to be realizing that they're just very sharp entrepreneurs, typically, and winners in the game of business, and approaching them with that in mind and realizing that like what they could do for you might be more valuable than the money. I always say the most valuable thing an investor can do is get sourcing of deals first, exclusively, and at the better valuation. If you can do that, your wealth compounds and grows greatly. Finding the investors who have the checkbook, but they can also get your product into Costco. They can also open up the doors to other ultra wealthy families for your real estate deals, whatever niche you're in. Look for that strategic access because getting off market deals might be key to your real estate strategy. If you get an investor that has access to all the off market deals you could ever wish for because of their position at a bank, or a special servicer or a brokerage firm, then that's something to like lean into and look at.
We've been taught, and we hear this all the time, you are the sum of the people you hang out with. And this is the type of people that I'm sure are quite sought after. Like outside of attending your event, how do we get in front of some of these people?
When I interviewed Tony Robbins for billionaires.com, he said that the power of proximity on one deal made him $400 million, and that it was one of the top pieces of advice he wanted to provide to people. And several billionaires have said the most important decision in your life is not what you do, it's not your career, it's who you spend your time with. And who you spend your time with, right, matters more than knowing what to do, getting the right degree. You marry the wrong person, you get the wrong business partner, you'll be divorced and in jail, potentially. Right people can be the opposite, right? So I think that is super critical. If you're not coming to a family office club event or other events out there in the space, what I'll encourage you to do is read a lot of the materials that are out there to understand their mindset. There are 245 books, not written on billionaires, but authored by them. You're literally getting the unfiltered words from their brain and understanding how they think. I would start there and get 10, 20. I've got the top 10 that I like best after reading about 130 of them so far. It's just at billionaires.com/books. And there's no affiliate links or anything. It's just my top 10 favorite books. And I would start there. And because Mark Cuban says most people, you don't need all the capital in the world. You don't need a network. If you focus on a niche area that's highly valuable and you read everything, no one else wants to do that. And you'll be light years ahead of everybody else. Cuban found that out by working at a software company. He got hired, read the software manual for the software they were selling. First customer comes in and he's like, oh yeah, that's easy. It's page 78. Did you read the manual? And after 3 customers, he's like, oh, nobody reads the manual. And his boss was so happy with him. He found out his boss had never read the manual for his own company that he had a franchise software store for. And so he was like, oh, no one wants to read anything? Like everybody is just basically lazy? Oh, okay. I'm not lazy. Like, fire me up. I'm going to read everything and run circles around everybody. I would just think people to know that I was broke in a basement studio apartment when I started this business with less money than I had due for rent that month in my bank account. And everything I've learned is just listening to family offices, studying them, reading about them, writing about them, interviewing them. And just by listening to how they work, we hit seven figures in revenue our third year in business. And we've been doing this for 18 years now.
Yeah, it's just fascinating that you've been able to talk to so many people, especially in this upper echelon. I would be remiss to ask you, you got that gold YouTube button behind you there. What has been the most challenging thing when it was just developing your marketing strategy and your YouTube channel and everything that you've accomplished in that side of the business?
Yeah. I think just sticking at it and keeping the focus has been most challenging. I've had people tell me I was wasting my time. The bigger of a network you get, the more negative comments you get. Mr. Beast says that he's given eyesight to 1,000 people and built 3,000 homes for children in Africa. And he gets more death threats now at 400 million subscribers than before he did any of this charitable stuff, which totally eclipses what everyone except for a few Richard Branson types have done publicly, right? And so part of it is like really knowing what you want to do long term and being so sure that being in that sandbox, like I didn't know what would happen when we got to the top 10 thought leaders on family offices, but I was so certain that would be valuable that I would do any amount of hard work to get from here to there, no matter how long it took. And then people who noticed that knew I wasn't here just for a 6-month stint in the family office space, and they're more likely to help you. And if you add genuine value as you go, then it's reciprocation and you're adding like mass reciprocation like you do with your podcast. It just creates good karma, as things move along. And I try to remind myself of that often because I see a lot of people slow down or get distracted once they get successful. We're trying to do that again now with billionaires.com. I don't know what will happen if we can just make it amazing, world-class, standout number one collection of mental models and strategies of billionaires, but I know something good will happen if we really nail that. And worst case scenario, I'll read 245 books and I'll get at least one idea that's like pretty valuable, right? I mean, like I say, I jokingly say I get at least one good idea from every book I read, but like it's the same type of thing. It's like you have to be willing to go into the dark, into the unknown and work your butt off for 5, 10, 15 years as long as you know that sandbox you aimed for is going to be amazingly worth it because nobody else wants to read the software manual. And that is the moat, the pain in the butt moat that no one else wants to do. And that's amazing because now Bloomberg can throw, $1 million a month trying to compete with you and they'll be better at some parts, but there'll be some cubicle jockey that gets bored and leaves after 2 years and you'll still be there running your Real Deal Crew podcast.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate this, Richard. This is really insightful. You brought a lot of value here today. I'm just going to direct everybody to familyoffices.com for more information there. Check out that Billionaires website and /books to take a look at that list. I'm sure that they're very valuable. I was going to mention, Richard, it still floors me today, and I sometimes feel alone at this. It just throws me completely for the loop that I can go into a Barnes and Noble, throw down $20 and get a slice of somebody's mind, like those thoughts just truncated and summarized in that fashion. And it's like the cheapest investment a person can make to learn so much.
I think that a lot of people miss that. They come to our investor club to meet an investor, to source a deal, to find a partner, and they're just like really focused on that. But it all comes down to what you just said. And I see it as like a perpetual learning machine for myself, just like you running your community, it's perpetual learning machine where I nerd out on that so much that I can see the usage stats. So I know for a fact they don't care about this tool, but I built it anyways. It's like I surveyed like everything Charles Munger has said publicly and came up with the most unique 100 mental models he apparently operates off of. And I did the same with Munger and Bezos and Sarah Blakely and Richard Branson. And then I transcribed 986 billionaire public talks into a billionaire AI tool. And I asked for 200 mental models from that. And we transcribed, 1,500 investor talks on stage and asked for 200 mental models from that. And we got 2,500 mental models into an AI sandbox. And now you can tell it what you're looking to do, upload your pitch deck, record an audio message, say what you're trying to do. What's your top 3 challenges and opportunities and say, what mental models should I be inserting into my brain right now so that I can get to where I want to go. What should I read to myself every morning? And I know if I do that, that I'm going to get to that sandbox that I want to dominate a decade from now. And to me, that could just be like completely life changing, but almost nobody cares about that at all. They want to know, hey, do you have an investor for me? Or like, hey, how do I raise capital? You got someone for my deal and close in 60 days. And like, that's where their mindset is. And we try to help them on those types of things too. But what you said, I think, you and I probably think alike in what we try to, how we try to get better.
Is there anything we should have hit on at this point?
One is I'm happy to share that mental model AI tool with you and your followers just for free. Like, we've got 30 plus of them, so I don't mind giving one away. And then the last thing is just that people in the family office space who are a class act, add value first, do something truly unique, they're really the ones who win long term. It's not the fast moving, stressed out, high pressure salesman. It's a person that does the right thing. They show up and do what they said they were going to do the first time. They're politely persistent. The more of a class act you are, the more that people just want to do business with you. And Munger and Warren Buffett both realize that instead that they strive to have the type of personality that's relatively agreeable and people like to do business with you and it builds trust, et cetera. So I think that's good for people to hear when they might think of it as like a cutthroat industry or something.
So, well, if you're ready, Richard, we'll close out this
Sure.
episode with our questions here. I'm going to change the first one slightly. What lie do entrepreneurs often tell themselves?
I would say that it's all about the hard work that you have to work yourself to death as a workaholic. I think that what you do matters a lot more than how hard you work. So if you don't do the stuff that you're bad at and you don't enjoy and focus on what you're extremely good at, you're just going to enjoy it more. And then it doesn't even really feel like work and you will outwork others and have fun doing it. So it's not about, if you talk to the founders of Home Depot, it's not about being workaholics. It's about a fun, exciting adventure.
If you could go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
It'd be to be more confident, more bold, and implement my vision faster. Many times I found out that my vision was spot on, but I was going slow to verify, make sure I wasn't off track, and was relatively meek and slow at implementing it. So it's taken me 18 years to get where I am. Probably could have done it in 10 years if I was just 100% bold and confident and, more self-belief. But, starting as a kid at age 26 in this industry, I think that was one thing that slowed me down a little bit.
Well, it sounds like I'm going to put you on the spot for this because you probably know every author. Do you have a book recommendation or what are you reading right now?
Eli Broad, who wrote a book called Unstoppable. I would recommend everyone read that book. It's ranked #1 at billionaires.com/books because the themes that he brings up in that book so nicely display what lots of billionaires say you should do. Just read those 10. I think they're worth millions of dollars, honestly. And he basically says you have to have a mindset of not stopping when people laugh in your face, say no, say it's unrealistic, say it's not going to happen, and expect excellence from all around you and have a really crystal clear vision of where you're going and why.
And then finally, what single process or tool have you implemented that has had the biggest time saving impact to you or your business?
I think listening is that many, many times people ask to get on my calendar, to brainstorm, to catch up, to pitch me a deal, etc. I just always ask for an agenda and a purpose for the call. If they don't know, I skip it. If it can be handled via email, I handle it via email. If it's not for me, but it's a team member, I give it to them. If it's not something we do, I let them know that. When there is an agenda and it is relevant and highly valuable, I'll answer and I'll write in the email, I'll say, oh, here's the answer to number 1, 2, 7, and 8. For the other 2 points, I think we can agree to that, but let's just spend our whole phone call on point number 5, because that's where the meat is. And that's super exciting. But this other stuff, yes, 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 never. And let's just focus on where the meat is. And people spend so much time in meetings just talking about things they could have said over email, text message, audio message. And we use hundreds of audio messages per week within my team and my clients because I can listen to them multiple times. I can forward them to people. I can speed it up at 2x speed, et cetera. And so using audio messages, agendas for calls, dodging bullets that way can save you hundreds of hours a year, I think.
Well, Richard, this has just been fantastic. One last time, familyoffices.com for more information, but really appreciate your time.
Take care.